Eye. Some important information regarding eye. 5 contributions of neural plate ectoderm in the eyeball. Optic nerve, retina, epithelium on ciliary body, epithelium on iris, muscles of iris, sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae. Optic nerve, retina, epithelium on ciliary body, epithelium on iris, muscles of iris. Derivatives of surface ectoderm in eyeball. Eye lens, first layer of cornea. All other components in the eye are derived from secondary mesenchyme. Orbit, roof of orbit, frontal bone, lesser wing of sphenoid. Lateral wall of orbit, zygomatic bone, greater wing of sphenoid. Floor of orbit, maxilla, major contributions, zygomatic bone, palatine bone, small part, medial wall of orbit, maxilla, lacrimal bone, ethmoid bone, body of sphenoid. Roof of orbit, frontal bone, lesser wing of sphenoid. Lateral wall of orbit, zygomatic bone, greater wing of sphenoid. Floor of orbit, maxilla, zygomatic bone, palatine bone. Medial wall of orbit, maxilla, lacrimal bone, ethmoid bone, body of sphenoid. Some important information. Superior orbital fissure. It is present between lateral wall and roof of orbit. It is present between greater wing of sphenoid, lateral wall and lesser wing of sphenoid, roof. Greater wing of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. Zygomatic bone has L-shaped contributions to the orbit. It contributes to lateral wall and floor of orbit. Zygomatic bone is L-shaped contributions to orbit, contributes to lateral wall and floor of orbit. Maxilla bone also has L-shaped contributions to orbit. It contributes to floor and medial wall. Maxilla bone also has L-shaped contributions to orbit. It contributes to floor and medial wall. Body of sphenoid is connected to lesser wing of sphenoid bone. Optic canal. It is present at the apex of orbit. It is present between body of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. Optic canal. It is present between body of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. It gives passage to optic nerve and ophthalmic artery. Front view of sphenoid. Contributions of sphenoid bone to orbit. Body of sphenoid bone forms a part of medial wall. Lesser wing of sphenoid bone forms a part of roof of orbit. Greater wing of sphenoid bone forms a part of lateral wall of orbit. Contributions of sphenoid bone to orbit. Body of sphenoid bone forms a part of medial wall. Lesser wing of sphenoid bone, greater wing of sphenoid bone. Lesser wing of sphenoid bone forms part of roof of orbit. Greater wing of sphenoid bone forms lateral wall of orbit. Superior orbital fissure. It is a gap between greater wing and lesser wing of sphenoid. It gives passage to cranial nerve 3, 4, 6, 3 sensory branches of ophthalmic nerve, 2 veins, superior and inferior ophthalmic vein. Medial wall of orbit. Medial wall of orbit has 4 bones. Maxilla bone, lacrimal bone, ethmoid bone, body of sphenoid bone. Maxilla bone, lacrimal bone, ethmoid bone, body of sphenoid bone. Ethmoid bone forms the medial wall of orbit and lateral wall of nasal cavity. Ethmoid bone forms the medial wall of orbit and lateral wall of nasal cavity. Schematic diagram of orbit. Superior orbital fissure, inferior orbital fissure, optic canal. Superior orbital fissure is present between roof and lateral wall of orbit. Inferior orbital fissure. It is present between lateral wall and floor of orbit. It is a gap between greater wing of sphenoid bone and maxilla bone. Optic canal is a gap between body of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. Superior orbital fissure is present between roof and lateral wall of orbit. Inferior orbital fissure present between lateral wall and floor of orbit. It is gap between greater wing of sphenoid bone and maxilla bone. Optic canal is a gap between body of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. Superior orbital fissure, inferior orbital fissure. రూఫ్ కి lateral wall కి మధ్యలో ఉండేది superior orbital fissure. Lateral wall and floor of orbit, inferior orbital fissure. Optic canal is the gap between body of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. Nerve supplying eyeball. Mnemonic for the nerve supplying the skeletal muscles of eyeball are LR6SO4. Reminder 3. Cranial nerve 3, oculomotor nerve, supplies most of the muscles of eyeball. Cranial nerve 4, trochlear nerve, supplies the superior oblique muscle. Cranial nerve